Hello. Welcome back to my channel, Shirley's Channel Chatter. So, Shirley's Channel Chatter right here on YouTube. So I have two other channels that I just created. So all three of my channels will be based on business, law, accounting, talk about different ancient philosophers in our past. So musicians, philosophers, artists, Rembrandt, Michelangelo, Picasso, so different ones. So I want to go way back. I want to just explore and just, do all the research that I can do on different people, different topics, relating to business, accounting, law, those, topics. No gossip on my channel, just, I want to be able to teach. I want to be able to teach, inspire, enlighten, and just bring, all around good information. So my last video, I stopped on Rosa Parks. So I want to finish with her. So I want to finish with Rosa Parks. And then, so let me start with Rosa Parks. So we know Rosa Parks, she was made familiar to us when she was told to give up her seat on the bus, Alabama. So she didn't want to do that. So she was told to give up her seat to, a white passenger that was on the bus at the same time she was on the bus. So she didn't want to give up her seat, so she was arrested. But I also did some research and found that it was another lady that went through the same ordeal that Rosa Parks went through. So, but I'll see if I can find her name too while I'm over here. And then I also want to talk about how slavery came about. Now, in my last video, I was so touched when I was reading on, I read up on Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and different ones. So Rosa Parks, it says Rosa Parks, a biography, accomplishments, and quotes. So I think I showed a picture of her last time, but it says Rosa Parks. She was born February 4th, 1913, Tuskegee, Alabama. She died October 24th, 2005, and I do actually remember when she died. She died in Detroit, Michigan. She was an American civil rights activist whose refusal to relinquish her seat on a public bus precipitated the 1955 to 1956 Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama, which became the spark that ignited the civil rights movement in the United States. She was born to parents James McCauley, a skilled stonemason and carpenter, and Leona Edwards McCauley, a teacher in Tuskegee, Alabama. Rosa Louise McCauley spent much of her childhood and youth ill with chronic tonsillitis. When she was 2 years old, shortly after the birth of her younger brother, Sylvester, her parents chose to separate. Estranged from their father, from then on, the children moved with their mother to live on their maternal grandparents' farm in Pine Level, Alabama, outside Montgomery. The children's great-grandfather, a former indentured servant, also lived there. He died when Rosa was 6. So her great-grandfather was a former indentured servant who also lived there. He died when Rosa was 6. So the indentured servants were the people that they didn't get paid, but their passage was paid for. Their passage was paid for from the work that they did. So those were the indentured servants. For much of her childhood, Rosa was educated at home by her mother, who also worked as a teacher at a nearby school. And that's similar to Frederick Douglass, but he was self-taught. He taught himself how to read and write. So now it says that Rosa Parks, her parents, it says, no, her mother, yeah, it was her mother, but her mother, who was also a teacher at a nearby school. Her mother was a teacher at a nearby school. She educated Rosa at home. And then it says she lived on a farm, so farm life probably was rough. Farm life was rough, though was less idyllic. The Ku Klux Klan was a constant threat. The Ku Klux Klan was a constant threat, as she later recalled, burning Negro churches, schools, flogging, and killing. So the Ku Klux Klan were heavy back in those days. Flogging, killing, burning churches, burning Negro churches, and schools. Black families. Rosa's grandfather would often keep watch at night with a rifle in his hand, awaiting a mob of violent white men. So he was always prepared with that rifle in his hand because he already knew that he really couldn't sleep that good because the Ku Klux Klan were always on the move. They were always on the move trying to burn down churches and burn down black people's homes. Violent white men, as they called them. The houses, windows, and doors were boarded shut with the family. So they had to board themselves up and shut themselves inside their home. So the houses, windows, and doors were boarded shut with the family, frequently joined by Rosa's widowed aunt and her 5 children inside. On nights thought to be especially dangerous, the children would have to go to bed with their clothes on so that they would be ready if the family needed to escape. Sometimes Rosa would choose to stay awake and keep watch with her grandfather. So imagine if we had to do that nowadays. You know, that was something. I just feel bad for what they had to go through back then. Because I think about it, I say, wow, what if our generation had to go through this now, what they went through, and then also we think about our children and our children's children. Rosa and her family experienced racism in less violent ways too. When Rosa entered school in Pine Level, she had to attend a segregated establishment where one teacher was put in charge of about 50 to 60 school children. Though white children in the area were bused to their schools, black children had to walk. White children bused to their schools. White children bused to the schools. Black children had to walk and endure the Ku Klux Klan. Public transportation, drinking fountains, restaurants, and schools were all segregated under the Jim Crow laws. So they separated the schools, the transportation, to people getting where you had to go. Children going to school, that was a segregation. They couldn't drink out of the same water fountain. Restaurants and schools were all segregated under Jim Crow laws. I know there's another movie. What was that movie we watched? Cicely Tyson played in. I forgot the name of that movie. And that was a good movie. I cried during that movie. She couldn't drink out that water fountain. At age 11, Rosa entered the Montgomery Industrial School for Girls, where black girls were taught regular school subjects alongside domestic skills. So that was a good opportunity. She went on to attend a black junior high school for 9th grade and a black teachers college for 10th and part of the 11th grade. At age 16, however, she was forced to leave school because of an illness in the family. She began cleaning the houses of white people. So she was forced to leave school. She had been through a lot. Just imagine going through all that at such a young age. And she had to leave school at 16 years old for a family illness, because of a family illness. And she started cleaning white people's houses. In 1932, at age 19, Rosa married Raymond Parks, a barber and a civil rights activist, who encouraged her to return to high school and earn a diploma. sometimes there's always somebody in our life that will definitely encourage us, to do, something positive. Then you'll have people in your life that might not be so encouraging, but the gentleman that she married, he encouraged her to go back to high school and earn her high school diploma. She later made a living as a seamstress. In 1943, Rosa became a member of the Montgomery chapter of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, and she served as its secretary until 1956. On December 1st, 1955, Parks was riding in a crowded Montgomery city bus when the driver, upon noticing that there were white passengers standing in the aisle, asked Parks and other black passengers to surrender their seats and stand. 3 other passengers left their seats, but Parks refused. She was subsequently arrested and fined $10 for the offense and $4 for court costs, neither of which she paid. Instead, she accepted Montgomery NAACP chapter president E.D. Nixon's offer to help her appeal the conviction and thus challenge legal segregation in Alabama. Just think, she had to pay $10. She was arrested and had to pay that $10 fee, and she was fined $10 for the offense. In other words, not giving up her seat for a white passenger. So that was a $10 offense and $4 for the court cost. Wow. And $10 and then $10 for the offense and $4 for the court cost, and now court costs are now what? 10 times that much. $4 for the court costs. Neither of which she paid. So she didn't pay nothing, but she got with the NAACP, the president of the NAACP, to help her appeal the conviction and thus challenge the legal segregation in Alabama. Both Parks and Nixon knew that they were opening themselves up for harassment and death threats. So she got death threats, he got death threats. So she refused. She said, look, I guess she felt, why should I have to give my seat up for this white passenger when I paid my fare just like they paid their fare? But back then, and in those days, Constitution seemed like it's not what it is today. It seems that way, because I'm trying to say, I got to give me a copy of that Constitution. Well, I know slavery was abolished. I don't remember the year, but I can look that up too. Slavery was abolished. I know which amendment. I don't know. I forgot what amendment that was, but I'm going to look that up too. But, so let me move on. It says, under the aegis of the Montgomery Improvement Association, led by the young pastor of the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, Martin Luther King Jr., a boycott of a municipal bus company began on December 5th. So Martin Luther King, he found out about the situation, the boycott situation, with her having to give up her seat on the bus for the white passengers. So Martin Luther King, he led the Montgomery Improvement Association. It said under the aegis of the Montgomery Improvement Association, it was led by the young pastor, Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. That was a young Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Well, Martin Luther King Jr. He probably didn't have his doctorate at that time. A boycott of the municipal bus company began on December 5th, right in the month of Christmas. African Americans constituted some 70% of the ridership, and the absence of their bus fares cut deeply into revenue. So in other words, they said a lot of African Americans were, had a higher percentage of, it was a higher percentage of them riding the bus. 70%. So it said that 70% of the ridership were African Americans. But you want to make them give up their seat for a white passenger? and the absence of their bus fares cut deeply into revenue. So without the right amount of revenue coming in, the bus service could probably end up going out of business. I said the boycott lasted 381 days. That's like over a year. 364 is a year, so like a year, a whole year, and 20-something more days. And even people outside Montgomery embraced the cause. Protests, segregation, restaurants, segregated. Protests of segregated restaurants, pools, and other public facilities took place all over the United States. On November 13th, 1956, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld a lower court's decision declaring Montgomery's segregated bus seating unconstitutional, and a court order to integrate the buses was served on December 20th. The boycott ended the following day. For her role in igniting the successful campaign, Parks became known as the mother of civil rights movement. Mother of the civil rights movement. So that is, I know. So I can see why February, the month of February is so very important. If it wasn't for a lot of these, I guess I would say individuals, people, African Americans in our past, where would we be today? We have come a long way, but it's still a lot of prejudices going on, and still a lot of not just African Americans. So it's a whole lot of other ethnic groups, other races that are experiencing racism today. And it says, so this was something else. The boycott lasted for, that is like over a year, 381 days, 365 days in a year, so it lasted over a year. So it lasted over a year, but the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the lower court's decision declaring Montgomery segregated bus seating. It was cited to be unconstitutional. In other words, you're going to make somebody give up their seat after they pay their fare. That's unconstitutional. Sometimes people try to do things that are not even in the Constitution of the United States of America. Simplifications of Park's story claimed that she had refused to give up her bus seat because she was tired rather than because she was protesting unfair treatment. So, right, I don't know if she ever, so in other words, they're saying that they don't know if she said she gave her seat up because she was tired or she gave it up, for the unfair treatment. She was tired rather than because she was protesting unfair treatment. So they said, Park's story claimed that she had refused to give up her seat because she was tired. Oh, they said she refused to give up her seat because she was tired rather than because she was protesting unfair treatment. I think maybe she may have just got off of work, maybe. I think that's what they said in one of my readings. I think I read that. But she was an accomplished activist by the time of her arrest, having worked with the NAACP. So she had a little pull, She was working with the NAACP on other civil rights cases, such as that of the Scottsboro boys, 9 black youths falsely accused of sexually assaulting 2 white women. So she was working with the NAACP. And I guess when they heard about her situation, about some water. So I guess when the NAACP heard about her situation with this bus situation, she had, in other words, when you have people in your corner that's, can help you, got a little pull, sometimes they can move things along a little faster. So she was working she had already been working with the NAACP. So she was working with the NAACP on other civil rights cases, such as that of the Scottsboro boys. So these boys were 9 black youth falsely accused of sexually assaulting 2 white women. 9 black youth falsely accused of sexually assaulting 2 white women. According to Parks' autobiography, I was not tired physically. Okay, this is her speaking. I was not tired physically, or no more tired than I usually was at the end of a working day. She said she was not tired physically. I was not old, although some people have an image of me as being old then. I was 42. She said she was 42 when that happened on the bus. Right, she should have been, 42. She should have been able to keep her seat. The only tired I was tired of giving in. Yeah, she said she was tired of giving in. Parks was not, so in other words, she wasn't tired, physically tired, she was tired of giving in, so that's why she didn't want to give up her seat. She was not the first black woman to, okay, that's what I was saying. She was not the first black woman to refuse to give up her bus seat for a white person. 15-year-old Claudette Colvin had been arrested for the same offense 9 months earlier. That's what I was saying. I couldn't think of the name, but her name is Claudette. But they didn't highlight her, maybe because Rosa Parks was working for the NAACP at the time, and I guess they had more pull. But said Claudette Colvin had been arrested for the same offense 9 months earlier, and dozens of other black women had preceded them in the history of segregated public transit. However, as secretary of the local NAACP and with the Montgomery Improvement Association behind her, Parks had access to resources and publicity that those other women had not had. That's what I was saying. She had access to more publicity than the other women. So they said Claudette Colvin, she was arrested. She was arrested for the offense 9 months earlier before Rosa Parks, and then dozens of other black women had preceded them in the history of segregated public transit. However, as secretary of the local NAACP and with the Montgomery Improvement Association behind her, Parks had access to resources and publicity that those other women had not. It was her case that forced the city of Montgomery to desegregate city buses permanently. So in 1957, Parks moved with her husband and mother to Detroit, where from 1965 to 1988, she worked on the staff of Michigan Congressman John Conyers Jr. She remained active in the NAACP and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. She established an annual Rosa Parks Freedom Award in her honor. Oh, they established a Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They established a Freedom Award. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference. They established a Rosa Parks Freedom Award in her honor. So in 1987, she co-founded the Rosa and Raymond Parks Institute for Self-Development to provide career training for young people and offer teenagers the opportunity to learn about the history of the Civil Rights Movement. So that's good. She received numerous awards, including the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1996, the Congressional Gold Medal in 1999. Her autobiography, Rosa Parks, My Story, 1992, was written with Jim Haskins. So that's good. She was part of, well, I guess I said she was co-author, because they said her autobiography, Rosa Parks, My Story, 1992. I want to be sure to get that book. So I want to get the Frederick Douglass book, My Life, My Bondage, Frederick Douglass, and then we had Rosa Parks, My Story, her autobiography, My Story, and I already purchased the Charles Darwin, his book, The Theory of Evolution, Only the Fittest Survive. I also want to get Henry David Thoreau, so that he has some type of writings, a book or something. I want to get that book, on Walden Pond, where he went down to the pond to, he wanted to be one with nature. He wanted to suck all the marrow out of life. And he wanted to back life into a corner to see if it was mean. Though achieving the desegregation of Montgomery city buses was an incredible feat, Parks was not satisfied with their victory. She saw that the United States was still failing to respect and protect the lives of Black Americans. So Rosa Parks was still on the move. So I am so grateful to you, Rosa Parks. Thank you for all that you have done in the, for Black Americans in the United States of America. Martin Luther King Jr., who had been brought to national attention by his organization of the Montgomery bus boycott, was assassinated less than a decade after Parks' case was won. So Martin Luther King, he was assassinated less than a decade after Parks' case was won. Biographer Kathleen, that was something else too. That was something. Dr. Martin Luther King, Wow, I miss Martin Luther King and all these. When you're reading over this stuff, you just really feel that it puts you in the moment. It puts you into, I guess I would say that it puts me into it puts me in, I guess I would say like a love type, not in love, but you feel like you love these people. You feel like you love them for what they have done in our history. Because if it wasn't for them, they paved the way for a lot of things, a lot of changes that were made back then. So important. So when I'm reading over this is the first time, I guess this is about the first time that it really has sunk in to say that, hey, they all deserve a holiday. All of them deserve a holiday. But I know they're not going to make a holiday for everybody. But we do have Martin Luther King holiday, so I do appreciate that. It says Parks' case was won. Before her case was won, Martin Luther King, he was assassinated a decade after. He was assassinated less than a decade after her case was won. Biographer Kathleen Tracy noted that Parks in one of her last interviews would not quite say that she was happy. I do the very best I can to look upon life with optimism and hope and looking forward to a better day, but I don't think there is any such thing as complete happiness. It pains me that there is still a lot of Klan activity and racism. I think when you say you're happy, you have everything that you need and everything that you want, and nothing more to wish for. I haven't reached that stage yet. After Parks died in 2005, her body lay in state in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, an honor reserved for private citizens who performed a great service for their country. For 2 days, mourners visited her casket and gave thanks for her dedication to civil rights. Parks was the first woman and only the second Black person to receive the distinction. So in other words, before she passed away, she, made known that she was not fully happy. So she said, if you are fully happy, then that means that you have done everything, that you have accomplished everything, in other words, a lot of things have changed for the better. Then, in other words, that would be the only way that you can say that you're happy. In other words, she said there still was racism and injustices, in the world, in the United States. It was still, Black people were still going through a whole lot. Even though she won her case, things were still going on. The Ku Klux Klan was still doing what they do, and, they were still doing what they do, and they were inflicting this negativity and bad behavior on African Americans. So she felt, she felt that she was not really completely happy because a lot of those things were still going on. Even though she won her case in Montgomery, Alabama, when she had to give up her seat on the bus. Okay, so that's it. We have the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the NAACP. It's the interracial American organization created to work for the abolition of segregation and discrimination in housing, education, employment, voting, and transportation, to oppose racism and to ensure African Americans their constitutional rights. The NAACP was created in 1909 by an interracial group consisting of W.E.B. Du Bois, Ida Bell, Wells Barnett, Murray White Ovington, and others concerned with the challenges facing African Americans, especially in the wake of the 1908 Springfield, Illinois race riot. Some of the founding members have been associated with the Niagara Movement, a civil rights group led by Du Bois. So that is Rosa Parks. So let me go over here, and I want to go and see, what started slavery. So what started slavery, because I just wanted to pick back up on Rosa Parks. So here, how did slavery start? So I read a little bit about how slavery started when they took some of the Africans from Africa, put them on a ship, and brought them over to the States. So it says U.S. slavery timeline, figures, and abolition, abolish, get rid of slavery. It says in the contents, when did slavery start? Then they'll talk about the cotton gin, history of slavery, slave rebellions, abolitionist movement. This is the table of contents: Missouri Compromise, Kansas, Nebraska Act, John Brown's raid on Harper's Ferry, and when did slavery end? The legacy of slavery. So let's start with throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, people were kidnapped from the continent of Africa, forced into slavery in the American colonies, and exploited to work in the production of crops such as tobacco and cotton. So Africans were kidnapped from the continent of Africa, forced into slavery. They were forced to work in slavery, dealing with the crops such as tobacco and cotton. By the end of the 19th century, America's westward expansion and the abolition movement provoked a great debate over slavery that would tear the nation apart in a bloody civil war. So in other words, slavery came about and they weren't trying to end no slavery, so they had some people that was against slavery, some people that were for it. So I guess when they were trying to iron out their differences, so that's what started the Civil War. You had two different sides. You had those that were for slavery, those that were against slavery. So we're gonna we're gonna have to fight this out, Y'all need to end this slavery. Though the Union victory freed the nation's 4 million enslaved people, the legacy of slavery continued to influence American history. From the Reconstruction to the Civil Rights Movement that emerged as a century after emancipation and beyond. Hundreds of thousands of Africans, both free and enslaved, aided the establishment and survival of colonies in the Americas and the New World. However, many consider a significant starting point to slavery in America to be 1619. So they figured that a significant starting point to slavery was 1619. They figured slavery started in 1619. So what is that, over 300 some years ago? When the privateer, the White Line, brought 20 enslaved Africans ashore in the British colony of Jamestown, Virginia. I need to do a lot more research too. It's just so much that Jamestown, Virginia. Then I also want to do some research on I want to go back in time, talking about the Pilgrims and how Thanksgiving came about. The crew had seized the Africans from the Portuguese slave ship Sao João Batista. The crew had seized the Africans from the Portuguese slave ships. So some of these slaves were stolen off these slave ships and put into slavery too. Put into slavery. That's what the objective was. The objective was anyway to put them in slavery off their ship. But I guess some other slave owners, they figured we're gonna take some of these slaves, we're gonna have them over here working for us. You know, slaves, they're out there working for free. You know, wasn't able to file no taxes, wasn't able to have no health insurance or none of that. Wasn't able to save no money, no bank accounts, just working for free, just free labor, free slave labor. Throughout the 17th century, European settlers in North America turned to enslaved Africans as a cheaper, more plentiful labor source than indentured servants, who were mostly poor Europeans. So yeah, they turned to the European settlers in North America. They turned to enslaved Africans as cheaper, cheap labor. You know, of course it's gonna be cheap if you have them slaves. They cooking for the master's kids and babysitting the master's kids and cooking and, you know, picking cotton and you know, doing all sorts of things for no type of compensation. It says, though it is impossible to give accurate figures, some historians have estimated that 6 to 7 million enslaved people were imported to the New World during the 18th century alone, depriving the African continent of some of its healthiest and ablest men and women. So they took these people from Africa. And you know, 6 to 7 million. Just imagine, 6 to 7 million enslaved people were imported to the New World from Africa, and depriving the African continent of the people, their residents. In other words, those were the African residents. Africa, they were the residents of Africa, and they could have helped build their own economy. You know, they could have helped nourish, strengthen, and help build on their own economy. But they were taking off their own, you know, help build their own economy. They were taking off their own continent. Because see, if they were over there and stayed over there in Africa, they may have been able to. I mean, I know the you know, job market over there in Africa is very, you know, very slim, but they had opportunity. You know, that's where they were born and raised. They had an opportunity to probably make a life for themselves in Africa, but they were taken, just forcefully taken from, you know, the continent of Africa. And then, you know, work for somebody else, you know, work for free. You know, working for free in the gardens, in you know, picking cotton. So they said deprive the African continent of some of its healthiest and ablest men and women. So depriving the African continent of their, you know, some of the ablest men and women that were younger, you know, of a younger generation, able to work, able to provide, able to help with the economy of Africa, help build their own economy. Not you got what right did you have to take them out of their I guess they would call you domicile, take them out of where they were born at. You know, they were born there, you know, born and raised in Africa. You take them out and just take them, you know, forcefully kidnap them. And then, you know, so that was something, you know, and that was in the Constitution. So slavery should have been unconstitutional, in my opinion. Why was that in the Constitution? In the 17th and 18th centuries, enslaved Africans worked mainly on the tobacco, rice, and indigo plantations of the southern coast, from the Chesapeake Bay colonies of Maryland and Virginia to South Georgia. So you know, not all of them, but some states were, you know, it was legal. It was legal to own slaves. That's the 17th and 18th century. Enslaved Africans, they worked mainly on the tobacco, rice, and indigo plantations of the southern coast. So anywhere from the Chesapeake Bay, colonies of Maryland and Virginia to South Georgia. Just think, Maryland, Virginia, Georgia, is after the American Revolution. Many colonies, particularly in the North, where slavery was relatively unimportant to the agricultural economy, began to link the oppression of enslaved Africans to their own oppression by the British and to call for slavery's abolition. So abolition. So call for slavery's abolish. So abolish slavery. Did you know one of the first martyrs to the cause of American patriotism was Crispus Attucks? So Crispus Attucks, a former enslaved man who was killed by British soldiers during the Boston Massacre of 1770. Some 5,000 black soldiers and sailors fought on the American side during the Revolutionary War. Okay, let's go to, Crispus Attucks was a former enslaved man. He was killed by the British soldiers. So let me look at Crispus Attucks and the Boston Massacre, and I think those will be the last two on this video. I had to come back on you because I want to go over, I have Charles Dickens, John Brown. I think that would end my slavery, information on slavery, and then I'll go into the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence, and also Emancipation Proclamation. So let me go into, let's go to Crispus Attucks. Let me go to Crispus Attucks, and then Crispus Attucks, and then I said what I would do next. Oh, I want to talk about, I think I do Charles Dickens and John Brown. Let's do Crispus Attucks first, real quick. Oh, my battery is getting low. Okay, look, I need to plug my computer up real quick. So I'm going to plug this computer up real quick. Let's see. Okay, I'm at 43 minutes, so that's cool. So I just had to plug my computer up real quick. Slavery in America. So let me go. I was looking for, let me start with Crispus Attucks. Crispus Attucks. I was just looking at my time. I usually try to do about an hour, over an hour, sometimes an hour and 30 minutes. Let me try, let's see, Crispus Attucks. Let's see, U.S. Because I'm trying to go in order, so since I started talking about slavery, Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman and all them, so I was trying to try to go in a little order, so Crispus Attucks, let's see, Crispus Attucks, he was an American whaler, sailor, and stevedore of African and Native American descent, who is regarded as the first person killed in the Boston Massacre, and as a result of the first American killed in the American Revolution. While he is widely remembered as the first Okay. While he is widely remembered, so this is Crispus Attucks. While he is widely remembered as the first American casualty of the American Revolutionary War, 11-year-old Crispus Cedar was shot a few weeks earlier by Customs Officer Ebenezer Richardson on February 22nd, 1770, and he was only 11 years old. Historians disagree on whether Attucks was a free man or an escaped slave, but most agree that he was of Wampanoag and African descent. Two major sources of eyewitnesses' testimony about the Boston Massacre published in 1770 did not refer to him as black or as a Negro. It appears he was instead viewed by Bostonians as being of mixed ethnicity. So Crispus Attucks, they said he may have been of mixed race, and some thought that he was black. It says two major sources of eyewitnesses' testimony about the Boston Massacre published in 1770 did not refer to him as black or as Negro. It appears he was instead viewed by Bostonians as being of mixed ethnicity. According to a contemporaneous account in the Pennsylvania Gazette, he was a mulatto man named Crispus Attucks, who was born in Framingham, but lately belonged to New Providence and was here in order to go for North Carolina. He was here in order to go for North Carolina. Attucks became an icon of the anti-slavery movement in the mid-19th century. Supporters of the abolition movement lauded him for playing a heroic role in the history of the United States. And then it says early life and ethnic origins. So I'm not going to read all this, but let me read some of this. Attucks became a sailor and whaler, so Crispus Attucks. They didn't really know whether he was a slave or they didn't know whether he was enslaved or he wasn't a slave, but he was killed. They said he was the first, then they said he was mixed race. He was the first. They said, some said he was black, but they said he was the first black to be killed in the Boston Massacre. But they said that he was of mixed race, so they really wasn't sure. Attucks became a sailor and whaler, and he spent much of his life at sea or working around the docks along the Atlantic seaboard. In 1874, the article in the American Historical Record, J.B. Fisher recounts the passage in the memoirs of Boston Tea Party. So that's something to read about too. Boston Tea Party, where they threw the tea overboard because they didn't want to pay the taxes. It says Fisher recounts the passage in the memoirs of Boston Tea Party participant George R.T. Hewis, which stated that at the time of the massacre, Attucks was a Nantucket Indian belonging on board a whale ship, Mr. Fogger's, then the harbor, and he remembers a distinct war whoop which he yelled, the mob whistling, screaming, and rending like an Indian yell. Many historians believe Attucks went to the alias Michael Johnson in order to avoid being caught after his escape from slavery. So they say they saying that he changed his name. Then they were saying he was an Indian. He was a Nantucket Indian, but they said he changed his name so he can be, he was able to get away. He was a slave. So he wanted to get away. He didn't want nobody to recognize him. Many historians believe Attucks went to the alias Michael Johnson. So in other words, they said they think he changed his name to Michael Johnson in order to avoid being caught after his escape from slavery. He may only have been temporarily in Boston in early 1770, having recently returned from a voyage to the Bahamas. He was due to leave shortly afterwards on a ship for North Carolina. Okay, I think that's all I read about Christmas addicts. So they wasn't sure whether he was a slave or not, but he changed his name to Michael Johnson. Put that down, Michael Johnson, so he can escape, and they wouldn't, know him by name. But if they recognized him by face, that would have been something different. So let me do Charles Dickens. Let me see Charles Dickens. Let me go to Google, and then I'll go to Charles Dickens, and then I want to do John Brown after that. Charles Dickens, John Brown, and I might read a little bit on. Let me read some quotes too. Let's do Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens. So this is Charles Dickens. Let me show you what Charles Dickens looked like. Charles Dickens. Let's see. That's Charles Dickens. So that's Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens. So Charles Dickens, biography, books, characters. Charles Dickens. Let's see what he was famous for. So Charles Dickens, so what was Charles Dickens most famous for? Charles Dickens is perhaps the most famous for his novella, A Christmas Carol, although it is a glorious story about the power of change and redemption, as well as a very warming tale of a festive tradition. It was not at all what Dickens initially set out to write. So this is 10 surprising facts about Charles Dickens. This is a better picture of him. That's Charles Dickens. So that's a better picture of Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens, he is the most famous writer in English literature. His stories such as Great Expectations, Oliver Twist, and A Christmas Carol. I remember Oliver Twist. I heard of that. Have continued to shape the way in which we understand the Victorian era, how we celebrate Christmas, and even how we speak. There are a number of words and phrases which Dickens has credited with either inventing or popularizing. And while Dickens has certainly come to define the era in which he lived, it is also true that his stories still speak to the modern reader almost 2 centuries after they began to appear. Dickens writes about the struggle of daily life, but also the idea that you can make a positive change in your own life. So in other words, he wrote about the struggles in life, and he was, I guess he was quoted to say, he said that, you can also make a better life for yourself. So it's like, your mind, you have to change your way of thinking. Change your way of thinking. Like Plato said, it says he uses his stories to call us to kindness, and though they have passed through the generations, they still speak to the heart today. This is reflected in the fact that Dickens has never been out of print. Almost every year, a new TV or movie adaptation of his work is released. So that's good. Charles Dickens even appeared in Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed, an honor not bestowed on many Victorian writers. Dickens also lived a remarkable life. Although most people think of him as an old man with a bushy beard looking up looking up soberly from a grainy black and white photograph, the reality was very different. We put together our 10 favorite facts, which just might surprise you. Dickens went to work in a factory at age 12. It says, forget the idea that Dickens was always a rich, benevolent Victorian. He was born in 1812, the son of John and Elizabeth Dickens. John was a clerk in the Royal Navy. He was a clerk in the Royal Navy, and to give you an idea of what sort of job there was, in A Christmas Carol, the long-suffering Bob Cratchit is a clerk. The family moved around a lot in Dickens's youth, from Portsmouth to Kent to London. John was getting deeper and deeper into debt, and the family were literally running away from their creditors. So he was getting further and further in debt, and the family was literally trying to run away from their debt. So they ain't no different than some of us today. You know, we have to try to stay out of debt. Finally, in 1824, their debts caught up with them, and John Dickens was in prison. John Dickens went to prison in Marshalsea. It was called Marshalsea Prison, along with his wife and most of his family. They all went to prison because they had so much debt over their head. Charles Dickens, age 12, was sent to live with a family friend. So I guess that must have been his parents. Because he said he went to work in a factory at age 12. It said the family moved around a lot in Dickens's youth. And it says John was getting deeper and deeper. His name was Charles Dickens. So John was the one that was getting deeper and deeper into debt. So those the son of John and Elizabeth Dickens. Okay, so those were his parents. His parents got deeper and deeper in debt, and they ended up going to prison. So he had to go live with a family friend at the age of 12. So Charles Dickens, the parents were named John and Elizabeth Dickens, and they had a job. John was a clerk in the Royal Navy, and to give you an idea what sort of job there was, in A Christmas Carol, the long-suffering Bob Cratchit is a clerk. The family moved around a lot in Dickens's youth, from Portsmouth to Kent to London. So in other words, that was his parents that had a whole lot. They accumulated a whole lot of debt, ended up going to jail, and he had to go live with a family friend at the age of 12. And he was sent to live with a family friend that was Charles Dickens, because his parents had to go to jail. They backed up so much debt, and it says, and he went to live with a family friend and to work at Warren's shoe polish factory. So he worked at Warren's shoe polish factory at the age of 12, and he was living with a family friend. Dickens would later recall the grimness of life in the factory, and although he only worked at Warren's for about a year, his experience of living on the very edge of absolute poverty never left him. So yeah, when you live on the edge of poverty, that will never leave you. So when you get your hands on some money, you're like, look, I'm going to spend some money, I'm going to enjoy myself, I want to give my family, my friends a little bit of money, help them out a little bit. So it feels good to help out if you have it like that. See, it says, Warren's he went to stay with Warren's for about a year. So in other words, he would later recall the grimness of life in the factory. That's the factory he worked at. And it was called Warren's. That's where he worked at for a whole year. And he said he recalled the experience of living on the edge of absolute poverty, and never left him. He would keep this period in his life a closely guarded secret, and it was only revealed to the public after his death in 1870. So it says he went to work in a factory at age 12. He dreamt of being an actor. I'm just going to read through it. He wrote his first novel when he was only 24, but it's Charles Dickens. He didn't grow a beard until he was in his 40s. He didn't grow a beard until he was in his 40s. A portrait of his wife was once mistaken for Charles Dickens in drag. Really? He founded his own charity. He encouraged other writers, even women. So encourage other writers. So that's what I do a lot of times too. His pet made a surprise appearance in his novels. He wrote A Christmas Carol in just 6 weeks. Dickens' mania was not a word used by the Victorians, but it was certainly a real thing. So that is Charles Dickens. So Charles Dickens, let me see if you have any quotes. You can go look up, some of these gentlemen. So I talked about Rosa Parks. This is Charles Dickens and Christmas Addicts, Rosa Parks, Charles Dickens. So that's 4. So let me look up some quotes, and then I want to go to John Brown. So I want to go to Charles Dickens, but I want to go to see if he have any. Let me see what other quotes he have. So let's go to Charles Dickens quotes. So Charles Dickens quotes, I like to, when I type my words in, I still like to, the first name, last name, I still like to capitalize. Even though I type them in, I still like to, because I'm so used to I like to make sure my English is correct. Charles Dickens, English writer. He was an English writer and critic. English writer and critic. Okay, Charles Dickens, charity begins at home and justice begins next door. Ha, that's a good one. So justice begins next door, charity begins at home. There is nothing so strong or safe in an emergency of life as a simple truth. There is nothing so strong or safe in an emergency of life as a simple truth. So then basically tell the truth. Tell the truth. There's nothing so strong or safe. So nothing safe or strong but the truth. Truth will set you free. So, nothing is strong or safe in an emergency. Emergency come up, I already told a lie as a simple truth. The simple truth. Emergency come up, but you already told lies throughout your life. People not going to believe you. Oh, she lied about this. He lied about that. He lied about this and that. No, we can't believe him. So there's nothing so strong or safe in an emergency of life as the simple truth. So that's Charles Dickens. That's a quote. And another one, it is a melancholy truth that even great men have their poor relations. Yeah, that is true. We all probably have had poor relations, friendships and, acquaintances. So it is a melancholy truth that even great men have their poor relations. Yeah, all great men. Great men that's not so great, they still probably had poor relations. Whether it's a relationship with a woman, a relationship with your family, your sister, your brother, your mother. He would make a lovely corpse. So I don't want to talk about that one. But 25 quotes from Charles Dickens. Let me see what other quotes he had. The most important thing in life is to stop saying, I wish, and start saying, I will. That's a good quote. So that's Charles Dickens. He says, stop saying, I wish, and say, I will. So the most important thing in life is to stop saying I wish and start saying I will. You stop saying I wish because your words can speak negativity in your life. Don't keep saying, I wish I could go to college. I wish I was rich. I wish I had $1 million in my bank account. I wish I had a new car. I wish I had a new house. I wish I had beautiful clothes. I wish I was beautiful. Don't say I wish, so that's what he's saying. Say I will. Speak positivity into your life. I will this, I will that. I will do this, I will do that. And another thing, consider nothing impossible. Then treat possibilities as probabilities. So treat possibilities as a probability. So don't be going around saying, thinking about, you want to go to college. You figure that's a possibility, but no, think of that as a probability. Think about, you want to be rich. Don't think about it as a possibility. Say, I'm going to make it a probability because I'm going to take the steps to help me reach that level. I don't want to get a job. I'm going to put some money to the side. I'm going to start my business. I don't care if I have, a little small amount. I want to take that and put it in some good investments, and, I want a product. I want 2 or 3 product lines, skincare line, hair care line. I want to write, I want to write some books, I want to put some books on the market, whatever you want to do, so just think about things, think about your dreams, your aspirations, your goals, think about all those things as possibilities. So, then treat the possibilities as probabilities. Don't treat them as possibilities, treat them as probabilities. So, and then don't be saying, oh, I wish, instead of saying, you keep saying, I wish. No, I'll say, I will do that. I will start my business. I will get my LLC. I will incorporate my business. I will go to college. Don't say I wish, say I will. I will go to college. I will get my degree. I will be blessed by God. I will. Okay, so that's Charles Dickens, and he also says, have a heart that never hardens, and a temper that never tires, and touch that never hurts. In other words, have a heart that never hardens. Never gets hard. Have a, be soft-hearted for, for this, for that, for this situation, for that situation. Don't have a heart. When you have a hardened heart, that means you don't care about nothing. My opinion, So he said, have a heart that never hardens. So don't let your heart harden. Be soft about things. Have love, care, respect for this and for that. So don't let your heart harden. And have a temper that never tires. So don't have a temper that you get tired and then you start treating people like anything because you're tired of having a good temper, or you are tired of being nice to the world, to people, And then it says, have a touch that never hurts. Have a touch that never hurts. When you talk to people, you're talking with enlightenment. You're talking with educational purposes. You're talking to empower someone. You're talking that we, have a touch that never hurts. Have a touch that heal people. Heal people, enlighten people. Just have a touch that hurts. Have a touch that never hurts. Have a touch that never hurts. So Charles Dickens. My advice is to never do tomorrow what you can do today. Procrastination is a thief of time. So these are some good quotes, Charles Dickens. My advice is to never do tomorrow what you can do today. So do today. In other words, tomorrow, you think about tomorrow, I'm going to apply to this college, I want to apply to this law school. But I want to do it tomorrow as opposed to doing it today. I need to go to the grocery store. I go tomorrow. I mean, that's understandable. I don't want to go tomorrow. I want to go today. So, you want to go to college. You want whatever you want to do. So in other words, don't procrastinate for something. Procrastination is a thief of time. So in other words, a thief of time. When you procrastinating on different things, it's stealing your time. That's time lost. Oh, I want to go to college. I want to have a kid, a child. I want to get married. But you have to wait to get married sometimes because you have to wait till you find somebody or they find you. But so in other words, procrastination is the thief of time. So in other words, if it's something that you want to do, it's something that you want to do in your life, and you have goals, you have dreams, you have aspirations. Don't procrastinate is what he's saying, because it's stealing time that you can't get back. You know, so I'm glad that I went and got my degree, Australian University, and I went and got my degree. So whatever I had procrastinated and said, oh, I'll go ahead and, you know, maybe I'll go next year, you know. And sometimes when you procrastinate, right, it's a thief of time. And sometimes you might decide not to go. You want to go to culinary school. You want to write a book, you know. You know, whatever you want to do, and, you know, just don't procrastinate. That's what he's saying. My advice is to never do tomorrow what you can do today. Procrastination is a thief of time. Charles Dickens. So, I have been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. I've been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. Yeah, in other words, that's Charles Dickens. So I've been bent and broken. So he's been bent. We all have been bent and broken, and we all been bent and broken and treated wrong, treated badly, heartbroken, all kind of broken. You know, lost family members and lost friendships. You know, your college friends might say, "Hey, I don't want to be your friend no more because you this way and you that way now." You know, so I've been bent and broken, but I hope into a better shape. So in other words, I guess he said, I hope into a better shape. He said, I hope, H-O-P-E. I hope into a better shape. So in other words, he's hoping that he can, you know, put himself into a better shape, you know, or take steps to make himself you know, into a hope he can put himself into in other words, first of all, you need to have the determination, the drive, the fortitude, determination. So he's hoping into a better shape. So you can hope into a better shape, or you can just go ahead and do the things you need to do to make yourself, to take the steps so you can move forward to being in a better shape. So he hoped into a better shape. Charles Dickens. I think that's it. Here go one right here. Look, a very little key will open a very heavy door. A very little key will open a very heavy door. A very little key will open a very heavy door. So I guess that's Charles Dickens, but I guess he means that sometimes it don't take a whole lot to succeed. It can be a big accomplishment that you're looking to accomplish, and sometimes it doesn't take a big key. It doesn't take a big, you know, in other words, you don't have to do a whole lot, you know. Sometimes it can be a heavy door. It can be the door of opportunity. The door of opportunity may be heavy, but sometimes it don't take a lot to reach that door of opportunity. So he said a very little key will open a very heavy door. So, you know, you want to go to college, and because sometimes you don't even have to. Sometimes when you go to college, some colleges you have to take the SATs. So when I went to college, they didn't require us to take the SATs. They did require the transcripts from my high school, so my grades were pretty good. So like I said, sometimes a very little key will open a very heavy door. So I got into college. I didn't have to have no high SAT scores. So they looked at my high school transcript grades, and I got in. So a very little, that's my, I guess that's my understanding of what, you know, he means when he says a very little key will open a very heavy door. Charles Dickens. So that's it. Let me go see what John Brown. I don't know why I keep saying Charles. I don't know why I keep on saying that. I have Rousseau, and I talked about some of these on my other videos. Sir Isaac Newton, who was that? Rousseau, Harriet. Oh, I didn't do Harriet Beecher Stowe. That's what I should have been doing. Alexander the Great. Then I want to talk about the Declaration of Independence. So let me go to John Brown. I think I'm going to end this video shortly because I don't want it to be too long. and I had to do another one tomorrow. John Brown, so I wanted to do Harriet Beecher Stowe, but let me go with John Brown, because I think these are all dealing with slavery. John Brown, he was born May 9th, 1800, Torrington, Connecticut. He died December the 2nd, 1859, Charlestown, Virginia. Let me see what they're saying about John Brown. John Brown was born, like I said, Torrington, Connecticut, died December the 2nd, 1859, in Charlestown, Virginia. Now in the West Virginia militant American. He was an abolitionist, and he was an abolitionist whose raid on the federal arsenal of Harper's Ferry, Virginia, in 1859 made him a martyr to the anti-slavery cause, and was instrumental in heightening sectional animosities that led to the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865. Moving about relentlessly through Ohio, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and New York, Brown was barely able to support his large family in any of several vocations in which he tried his hand: tanner, sheep drover, wool merchant, farmer, and land speculator. Although he was white, in 1849, Brown settled with his family in a black community founded in North Elba, New York, on land donated by the New York anti-slavery philanthropist Gerrit Smith. Long a foe of slavery, Brown became obsessed with the idea of taking overt action to help win justice for enslaved black people. So he wanted to help the slaves. He wanted to help the enslaved black people. And this is John Brown. He wanted to help the enslaved black people. Wanted to help the enslaved. Well, that's good. You had a white person. So it said Brown became obsessed with the idea of taking overt action to help win justice for enslaved black people. So that's John Brown. In 1855, he followed 5 of his sons to the Kansas Territory to assist anti-slavery forces struggling for control there, a conflict that became known as Bleeding Kansas. With a wagon laden with guns and ammunition, Brown settled in Osawatomie and soon became the leader of anti-slavery guerrillas in the area. So he became the leader of anti-slavery guerrillas in the area. So he went to Kansas. He was known for dealing with this conflict that became known as the Bleeding Kansas. Brooding over the sack of the town of Lawrence by a mob of slavery sympathizers, May 21st, 1856, Brown concluded that he had a divine mission to take vengeance. 3 days later, he led a nighttime retaliatory raid on a pro-slavery settlement at Pottawatomie Creek, in which 5 men were dragged out of their cabins and hacked to death. After this raid, which became known as the Pottawatomie Massacre, the name of old Osawatomie Brown conjured up a fearful image among local slavery apologists. So he went to, it says in 1855, he followed 5 of his sons to Kansas. So he went to Kansas with 5 of his sons, and he was dealing with this conflict. So he was trying to get rid of slavery, anti-slavery. So that's the abolitionists. They were against slavery. Anti means against. So he had a whole wagon with it was laden with guns and ammunition. So he already knew he had to fight. So the battle that they had was called the Pottawatomie Massacre. John Brown. So he led that, I guess I would call it an organization. And it says in the spring of 1858, John Brown convened a meeting of black and white supporters in Chatham, Ontario, Canada, in which he announced his intention of establishing in the Maryland and Virginia mountains a stronghold for escaping slaves. So when we think about slavery, we don't think about the white Americans that did help out with slavery. So John Brown, he was a white gentleman, and he went to Kansas and formed the organization, and then he was wanted to get rid of slavery. So, and also it says in the spring of 1858, he convened a meeting of black and white supporters. So black and white supporters, they were supporting, the anti-slavery movement. So, he wanted to, get these people together. Let's get rid of this slavery. Let's get rid of this, we're against slavery, anti-slavery movement. He was elected commander-in-chief of this paper government while gaining the moral and financial support of Gerrit Smith and several prominent Boston abolitionists. Write that name down. Gerrit Smith was a abolitionist as well. Abolitionist. Okay, and several prominent Boston abolitionists. In addition to Smith, this group later referred to as the Secret Six comprised physician and educator Samuel Gridley Howey, teacher and later journalist Franklin Benjamin Sanborn, industrialist George L. Stearns, and ministers Thomas Wentworth Higginson and Theodore Parker. Some of them had provided financial support for Brown's efforts in Kansas, and they would back his next and most famous undertaking too. In the summer of 1859, with an armed band, 16 white and 5 black abolitionists, Brown set up a headquarters in a rented farmhouse in Maryland across the Potomac from Harper's Ferry, the site of a federal armory. On the night of October 16, he quickly took the armory and rounded up some 60 leading men of the area as hostages. Brown took his desperate action in the hope that escaped slaves would join his rebellion. So he was hoping that the desperate slaves, he took a desperate, his action was desperate, and in the hope that the escaped slaves would join his rebellion. So he was hoping that the slaves that had already escaped, he was hoping that the slaves that already escaped would join him to help free some other slaves. Throughout the next day and night, he and his men held out against the local militia, but on the following morning, he surrendered to a contingency of troops under the command of Colonel Robert E. Lee, of course, including a small force of U.S. Marines that had broken into the armory and overpowered Brown and his comrades. Brown himself was wounded, and 10 of his followers, including 2 sons, were killed. He was tried for murder, slave insurrection, and treason against the state, and was convicted and hanged. John Wilkes Booth, later Abraham Lincoln's assassin, was present at the execution as a militia man. So that is John Brown. Although Brown failed to spark a general slave revolt, the high moral tone of his defense helped to immortalize him and to hasten the war that would bring emancipation. Noting that the gaze of Europe was fixed on America, French novelist Victor Hugo wrote that Brown's hanging, would open a latent fissure that would finally split the Union asunder. As they marched into the battle during the Civil War, Union soldiers sang a song called John Brown's Body that would later provide the tune for the battle hymn of the Republic. So that is John Brown. That's John Brown. And so let me get off of this slavery. Let me see, I think did I do it all? Charles Dickens, John Brown. Let me do one more. I think I'm gonna go down now to, I'll come back to some of these other names. Let me talk about, let me go to Rousseau. Newton. Let me go to Sir Isaac Newton. Let me talk about, I think this is going to be my last one for this video. So I'm glad you all can join me. So I just want to, bring some enlightening information, educational, inspirational, information on my channel to, my followers. So subscribe to my channel. And if you have any ideas of anything you might want me to do some research on, anything business related, business, accounting, law, so it will be no gossip on this channel. So all educational, all the educational information on my channel. So let me go with R-O-U, Rousseau. So let's read up on Rousseau, because I think I did. And then when I finish, I will have a whole list. I think I did do Rousseau on one of my other videos. I think I did, I may have, but sometimes I can do a little bit. Sometimes even if I do the same one on another video, I might go a little further in depth, about their life. So it said John Jacques Rousseau. Let me see if I see where they say Rousseau right here. He was born in Geneva, which was at the time a city-state and a Protestant associate of the Swiss Confederacy, now a canton of Switzerland. Since 1536, Geneva had been a Huguenot republic and a seat of Calvinism. 5 generations before Rousseau, his ancestor Didier, a bookseller who may have published Protestant tracts, had escaped persecution from the French government. Let me go, let's see, Rousseau. Okay, here we go right here. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, major works of political philosophy. I think this is going to be the last one I do. So let me show you what Rousseau looks like. That's Rousseau. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So as part of what Rousseau called his reform or improvement of his own character, he began to look back at some of the austere principles that he had learned as a child in the Calvinist Republic of Geneva. He decided to return to that city, repudiate his Catholicism and seek read mission to the Protestant church. He had in the meantime acquired a mistress, a literate laundry maid named Therese Levasseur. To the surprise of his friends, he took her with him to Geneva, presenting her as a nurse. So in other words, he took her to Geneva with him, presented her as a nurse, but all the time there was a romantic relationship. Although her presence caused some murmurings, Rousseau was readmitted easily to the Calvinist communion, or readmitted easily, so I butchered that. I did, Rousseau readmitted easily to the Calvinist communion. So when I look at the context of the sentence, I can tell, you can tell what the word, you can tell the pronunciation of the word. So when I see that it said it said something about the Calvinist communion. In other words, he was readmitted easily to the Calvinist communion. His literary fame having made him very welcome to a city that prided itself as much on its culture as on its morals. Rousseau had by the time completed a second discourse in response to a question set by the Academy of Dijon. What is the origin of the inequality among men, and is it justified by natural law? The argument follows on that of his first discourse by developing the proposition that people are naturally good, then tracing the successive stages by which they have descended from primitive innocence to corrupt sophistication. So people are naturally good. I feel that way too. We are naturally good. When we come out the womb, we are naturally good. But as you proceed in life, as you grow, as you learn different things, different people come in your life, you know, and you learn from them, and whether it's good or bad, you learn things from people. You learn from people, you learn from going to school, there's so many ways that we learn as we go along, so like John Locke said, when we're born, our mind is like a blank slate. What it means, it's like a blank slate, but as we go along, as we grow, as we get older, we learn things. We learn from people. We might go to school. We learn, from our experiences. Rousseau begins his discourse. So it's a lot of pop-ups. So it says Rousseau begins his discourse, Sir Oregon de Galite, discourse on the origin of inequality by distinguishing two kinds of inequality, natural and artificial. The first arising from differences in strength, intelligence, and so forth. The second from the conventions that govern societies. Let me see what Rousseau thus exonerates nature and blames society. He says that passions that generate vices hardly existed in the state of nature, but began to develop as soon as people formed societies. So in other words, he says that passions that generate vices hardly existed in the state of nature, but began to develop as soon as people formed societies. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I guess I assume that he's saying that as soon as we form, we form societies, or societies are formed. As soon as you be around people, you start learning the things that they do, the traits that they have. Some people have bad habits. Some people have bad and good habits. Some people just have all bad habits. Some people have all good habits. So in other words, so he said when people form societies. In other words, when people form societies, that means social. We're being social with one another. We're learning. We're definitely going to learn. You're learning from this person. You're learning from that person. You learn from your own family. And some people have some negative qualities, that, you can see it. But you don't have to act on certain qualities or certain actions that other people may have. You see somebody doing something bad, you don't have to do what they do. People out there smoking and doing all kinds of stuff. Let's see. Let me do some quotes, because I'm going to end this video. Let me see what kind of quotes Rousseau has. As Rousseau. Rousseau. It is spelled right. Rousseau. Let me see if you have any quotes. Yep. Patience is bitter, but its fruit is sweet. Patience is bitter, but the fruit is sweet. So in other words, patience is bitter because you gotta wait on it. You're waiting on it, but once it comes, it's fruit. It's sweet. It's invigorating. It's something that you may have been waiting on a long time, or even the outcome is beautiful. Patience is bitter. So you gotta take the bitter with the sweet sometimes. Absolute silence leads to sadness. It is the image of absolute silence leads to sadness. So in other words, if somebody absolutely silent, you absolutely silent, it will make you sad, because in other words, you don't, if you don't put those beautiful, rewarding, enlightening thoughts in your head, then absolute silence can lead to sadness. But if you are absolutely silent, you can be thinking about something that's beautiful. Think about something that's beautiful. Thinking about something that's life changing. Think about something that's going to make you a better person. So absolute silence leads to sadness. And another one, what wisdom can you find that is greater than kindness? What wisdom can you find is greater than kindness? So that is Jean-Jacques Rousseau quotes. What wisdom can you find is greater than kindness? It's really not too much that's greater than kindness. In other words, be kind to yourself, be kind to someone else, be kind to your family. So what wisdom can you find is greater than kindness? Insults are the arguments employed by those who are in the wrong. Insults are the arguments employed by those who are in the wrong. Right, 9 times out of 10, most of the time, the people that insult you, they are in the wrong. By those who are in the wrong, they are in the wrong, because sometimes they might not know what they're talking about. Sometimes they may come to a conclusion before they hear all the facts. Insults are the arguments employed by those who are in the wrong. People may insult you, oh yeah, blah, 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 I heard this about that person, so that's how they are. Sometimes you can hear something about somebody, but that don't mean it's true. You can hear something about somebody, but that doesn't mean that it's true. So, insults are the arguments employed by those who are wrong. By those who are in the wrong. So let me see. That's Gene. Or people in their natural states are basically good, but let me see what he's saying right here. Let me couple more. People in their natural state are basically good, but this natural innocence, however, is corrupted by evils of society. Yep. So, people in their natural state. This is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. So Rousseau felt that people in their natural state are basically good. Yeah, 9 times out of 10. Well, and when we're coming up little kids, we're naturally good. Sometimes we can be a kid and come up bad, but people in their natural state are basically good. So in other words, he's saying we're naturally good until we get around other people. So until we get around society tends to mold us and shape us. Sometimes it does, and it molds us, shapes us into things that our friends, our acquaintances may be doing, So it says, however, it is corrupted by the evils of society. So society has some evils, but society has some good stuff too. So people in their natural state are basically good. So in our natural state, we are good. We're definitely good, but this natural innocence, however, is corrupted by the evils of society. So then that's a good quote. And like I said, a lot of these quotes and a lot of these gentlemen in our past, a lot of their views and a lot of their quotes are relevant today. So I find a lot of these quotes very relevant today. Very enlightening, very educational. So I love reading the quotes. I love reading all their quotes. So they have some nice quotes. So we can make our own quotes, make your own quotes. So I think that's the last one. Let me do one more. Let me talk about, let me go through some quotes. Newton. I can look up these quotes all day. I just love to read them. Okay, let me just read some quotes on Newton. Images of Newton. 25 quotes by Newton. That's what they have online. It says, what we know is a drop. What we don't know is an ocean. So in other words, what we know is a drop. This is Isaac Newton. What we know is a drop. What we don't know is an ocean. I guess he's saying, to me, my opinion, we might just know a little bit about something. We might not know the whole story. We might not know the origin, where it originated from. and we might not know everything about that. That's just like people. You can think you know something about, sometimes people think they know more about your business than you. But, so it says what we know is a drop, and what we don't know is an ocean. What we don't know, we don't know the whole story. We don't know all that there is to know about this subject, this person, or this family, or whatever, So that's just one quote. Then another one, live your life as an exclamation rather than an explanation. Live your life. So that's Isaac Newton. What they call him, Sir Isaac Newton. Live your life as an exclamation rather than an explanation. So don't feel that you gotta explain your life. Just, you shouldn't have to explain your life to nobody. Do what you want to do. You want to go to college, you want to have a baby, you want to get married, you want to teach, you want to go to law school, you want to go to medical school, you want to go to business school. So I went to business school, Strayer University, business administration. So I live my life as an exclamation, and I dang on sure I'm not going to be explaining my life to anyone, So sometimes, when you're coming up, and, you coming up in life, and you might have people that say, well, she probably ain't going to be nothing with her life. Some people think you're not going to, some people do actually think that. Or she ain't going to be nothing, or he ain't nothing, he ain't going to be nothing, he ain't going to never be nothing, You don't owe nobody no explanation. Do what you do. Live your life the way you live your life, whatever makes you happy. So live your life as an exclamation rather than an explanation. None of us owe anyone any explanations about what type of life we're going to live, or, what we want to do with our life. Some people want to go to college, some people don't. I mean, it's not my job to check you. Not my job to check you or you or you or you. I don't check nobody. I let them do what they do, so unless it's your kids. Now, if you talk to your kids or something like that and you want to get them some inspirational conversation, I would say, then that's something different. But, we're not responsible for checking the next person. It's not my job to check you, live your life, do what you want to do whatever makes you happy. Just make your life. Don't feel that you have to explain anything to anybody. Now, except, like I said, our parents, you might talk to your parents. You and your parents may have a conversation. That's something different. Gravity explains the motions of the planets, but it cannot explain who sets the planets in motion. Yep. Gravity explains the motions of the planets, but it cannot explain who sets the planets in motion. So this is Sir Isaac Newton. Truth is ever to be found in the simplicity and not in the multiplicity and confusion of things. So the truth shouldn't be found in the confusion of things. Truth should automatically be able to be revealed. So truth is ever to be found in the simplicity and not in the multiplicity and confusion of things. So if you gotta look for the truth in the confusion, then where is the truth? If I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. So this is Sir Isaac Newton quotes. This is the last quote. So if I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. So in other words, people that paved the way, I guess that's what they mean. People that paved the way for us to be able to get a good education, or be able to do this and be able to do that. Because, back in the day, like Frederick Douglass, he taught himself how to read and write. He didn't have no giant shoulder to stand on. So he taught himself how to read and write. But it said, if I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. I assume that he means people that, paved the way for us to be able to learn, get an education, go to college, because we already know back in the day, back in the slavery time, they were not even able to read or do none of that. Couldn't work, couldn't get no payments for their job. So if I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. In other words, people that we probably have learned from, We learn from people. You know, you always, as you go along in life, and, you know, as you go along in life, you will learn. You'll learn from this person. You learn from the parents. You learn from the siblings. So, if I have seen further than others, it is by standing upon the shoulders of giants. So, I want to close out on that note. And I want to say thanks for joining me. Subscribe to my channel. Comment. Subscribe, leave some comments below, and if you have any other topics that you think I may need to know about, I don't mind doing any research. I don't mind doing research because we're all here to learn. So my channel is going to be strictly a channel of learning. So I want to also bring forth some different, you know, philosophers, different people, different ancient people, I would say. It don't even have to be ancient. It could be people of our generation, people, you know, people of a different generation, even of our generation, people of, you know, ancient philosophers, Plato, Socrates, different ones, you know, John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, Sir Isaac Newton, all of them. I want to do research on all of them just fine. You know, I want to find some hidden information that I don't know about, you know, and I want to bring it to my channel. But thank you for joining me, and I'll see you on my next video. So you all have a blessed one.